We have some pretty big news to talk about today. It looks as though Patrick Roy is trying to make a return to the NHL. Andrew Shaw's announced his retirement. We have some pretty significant injuries to discuss, and it looks as though the NHL is much closer to naming its second broadcast partner in a new US TV deal, and it won't be current partner NBC. We'll discuss all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. First up, a couple quick items regarding the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, first off, they've announced a signing here, which came, I believe, on the weekend. So Riley Stillman, left shot defenseman, has signed a 3-year contract extension. He was going to be a restricted free agent heading into the offseason, and he's inked a 3-year extension valued at $1.35 million per season. Of course, Riley Stillman, the left shot D, was acquired from Florida in a trade earlier this year, along with Brett Connolly and Henrik Borgstrom. So clearly they see him as being a part of the team's future. They also had to make sure they have a certain number of defensemen to expose in the expansion draft. So there's probably a combination of things there that led to this signing. But getting a 3-year deal certainly tells me that they likely value him and like to keep him around if they can. It makes a good contract for a third pair D like him. Now, obviously, we had some other bigger news on the Hawks organization today. Longtime veteran forward Andrew Shaw has announced that his career is over and he is retiring from professional hockey due to several concussions that he's encountered throughout his NHL career. Now, Andrew Shaw is a pretty typical and excellent, what you call like an underdog story. He was a player who was passed over in the NHL draft on more than one occasion, was finally selected in 2011 in the 5th round by the Chicago Blackhawks. Went on to have a very impressive start to his NHL career. In his first NHL game, he had a fight and a goal. Obviously played hard the entire time, won multiple Stanley Cups with the Blackhawks, had a stint in Montreal where he certainly was a big part of that team and the team's culture for a while as well. Went back to Chicago. Since his return to the Hawks, he has been hurt a fair bit, hasn't really played a ton, but certainly a guy who was a character player, worked really hard, and I know he was certainly known for his antics on the ice, and certainly, like I said, deserves time now to be able to call it a career and spend time with his family. Doctor's advice here, he has suffered way too many concussions, and obviously the long-term impacts could be significant, so it's probably best for his overall quality of life. And like he said in his video that he put out earlier today, it's just about family at this point. And certainly like to wish him all the best on a pretty solid NHL career. Certainly had his moments. I know there were some fans obviously didn't care for his style of play. He was a rough kind of player and certainly dished out some injuries as well as ones he received. But you have to admire, I think, the fact that he played with so much grit and determination. And like I said, just getting a shot in the league, considering where he was at even before he was drafted. Like I said, it's just a good underdog story. It goes to show if you work really hard that you can make your dreams come true and get what you're looking for. So Shaw will no longer play hockey in the NHL. He's only 29 years old, will not turn 30 until later this summer in July. So goes to show just the amount of impact injuries can have on your body and on your quality of life being a professional athlete. Now, on to some other news here today. It looks as though the NHL might be getting closer to announcing its second broadcast partner in the new US TV package. We heard earlier that ESPN was going to be the primary provider of NHL games on US television, and now looks as though it's down between Fox and likely TNT being the main frontrunner. I know it was reported on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday Headlines by Chris Johnson just on Saturday, just a few days ago, that looks like Fox was the frontrunner, but now we had information from Bob McKenzie, known as a Bob Bomb here on Twitter earlier, saying that he has information, and Bob's usually bang on. He doesn't say a whole lot anymore where he's into semi-retirement, but when he does, it's usually something more significant, and he's usually bang on. But he puts out a caution here that it's not a done deal, and of course, until it's a done deal, you never know. Things can go sideways. But it looks as though TNT might be getting that secondary package here for NHL hockey. And personally, I think TNT would be a better fit than Fox for a couple of reasons. One, TNT works a lot with the NBA. Does a terrific job. I would hope that the NHL broadcast would kind of adopt some of the NBA broadcasts and allow their analysts to show some personality. I know I really personally enjoy listening to guys like Shaq on TNT. So we'll see how that goes. But the other big reason here is that Fox has a lot of other sports coverage. They cover a lot of NASCAR, NFL, MLB, etc. So the NHL would, maybe get lost in the shuffle as a secondary provider. I mean, not to say that they wouldn't do a good job, but I think TNT might be able to put a bigger focus on it. And as we know, the NHL seems to kind of align itself in a lot of ways with the NBA as well when it comes to policy and stuff. So I think it would be a good fit for TNT. So we will see where this goes. I'm not sure how quickly we're going to get an official announcement, but considering just a couple days ago it was looking like Fox, now here it is with TNT. But NBC is done. We have reports today that they have pulled out of the negotiation. So it's not even going to be a scenario that NBC might be trying to get back in it here and still be able to pull it off getting the secondary package. But essentially, a lot of people were saying that the price obviously is going up a fair bit based on what they paid before a long time ago when they get the rights to the NHL. And the NBC people just don't want to be able to pay a bigger price for a smaller piece of the puzzle. Although they also were pushing to put, I think, a fair bit of it behind Peacock, obviously their streaming service. And the NHL just saying that they really want to get more games on TV and not behind a paywall. And it just might not be the best fit in the direction they're heading. Although, even back as early as, say, December, January, it was still looking like NBC would likely get a piece of the puzzle here. So it's a little surprising that they're pulling out. But like I said, it might be a better fit. Some feel that NBC doesn't really do a great job anymore. I think it's fair to say NBC certainly served their purpose. They were partially responsible for getting some gimmick games going, like the Winter Classic, kind of bringing back the All-Star Game, which I know is kind of a love-hate relationship. Some fans love that stuff. Some fans don't care for it at all. But, at this point, I think NBC's, like I said, they've kind of served their purpose, and it's time to move on to some other networks here to have an opportunity. And we'll see. I'm not sure if any of the NBC people will get picked up by the other networks trying to carry on their hockey analyst career. So we'll see about that. But clearly it looks as though the NHL is getting really close to having their full US TV package all lined up and announced here shortly. Well, we also have some significant injuries to touch on. The Winnipeg Jets are going to be without one of their top goal scorers this year. Nikolaj Ehlers is going to be out for the remainder of the regular season, with the hopes that he'll be back hopefully for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. That was the words from head coach Paul Maurice. Now, he was injured in their last game against the Toronto Maple Leafs on a hit from Jake Muzzin. After the hit, he did go down the tunnel. He was seen leaving the bench area, and certainly an injury to his arm, shoulder area. I'm not sure exactly what the injury is, but he will be out for a period of time. So that's certainly a big blow. Ehlers has been having a terrific season for the Jets. Certainly, especially in the absence here of Patrick Roy being traded. He's kind of taken over being their top goal scorer and played terrifically. So, that certainly could impact their positioning in the standings down the stretch here without Ehlers. Be interesting to see how they do. And hopefully when he does come back for the playoffs, that he's, at least close to 100%, because having Ehlers play injured, at a much lower percentage is still going to be a really big blow for the Jets if they have to do that and come playoff time. Now, another player that I'm hearing could be out for the season but hasn't been confirmed by the team, at least as of the recording of this video. So as always, I'll caution you on the information and check the pinned comment. If I get any other reports, I will update things so you have the most accurate info. But there is word that the Calgary Flames might be without defenseman Noah Hanifin for the remainder of the regular season as well. I'm not sure exactly what the injury is at this point, but obviously it's something that's fairly serious if it's going to keep him out of the lineup in a situation where the Flames are trying to chase down the Habs for the final playoff spot. These games are crucial, especially tonight's matchup against Montreal. So if he's going to not be able to play, it's going to be fairly serious. Players play through a lot, especially in important times of the season like this. So that would be a big blow. No really word on if he would be back for the playoffs, if they were to make it or not, because I don't really have a lot of information on that situation. That was being put out there earlier by Nick Kyprios on Twitter. But like I said, he didn't really put out a lot of the information. It hasn't been confirmed by the team or anything like that. So we don't really know anything further. At least the Ehlers situation has been discussed a lot more openly here. So that we can confirm. But if that's another big blow for the Calgary Flames, Hanifin plays a big role in that back end, especially 5-on-5, but on the power play as well. And the Flames have won their last few games against Montreal. They closed that gap. Obviously they still have 4 points that they need to make up, and the Habs have a game in hand. If tonight's game really is crucial, especially for Calgary. I mean, if Calgary wins tonight, it's not, all do or die here for Montreal. They still have math in their favor, but then the Flames have momentum in their favor, and right now the momentum seems to be more favorable the way things have been progressing for both clubs. So we'll have to really see how this plays out. But obviously missing Hanifin could be a big blow, and we'll see how they react accordingly. Now, lastly here, I want to touch on the fact that it looks like Patrick Roy wants to make an NHL return either as a head coach or general manager, and I would assume that he probably would prefer to be in a management role, but that's just a guess on my part. But there was a tweet by a sports agency earlier today indicating that they've now signed Patrick Roy as a client and will be representing him to find head coaching and or management roles within the NHL for him. So that's certainly a major sign, and that he's coming back, or at least he wants to come back. And you can't help but wonder, where could he possibly end up? I mean, if you look around the NHL, there's going to be a handful of NHL coaching vacancies when the season ends. I don't have any doubt about that. We have a fair bit of coaches that are on expiring contracts with no real word yet if they're going to be re-signed or brought back. I mean, you got John Tortorella in Columbus. Many feel like he's probably done there. He's been there 6 years. It's probably time to go in a new direction. Seems like a lot of the players there, like Laine and Domi, etc., they don't really gel with him. So if they don't want to move out a bunch more players, that they kind of need to go differently. I think that's just my take. There's many that feel that Rick Tocchet in Arizona is on an expiring contract, likely doesn't come back to the Coyotes. They have a new GM there, and the GM likely wants to hire his own guy. The Coyotes are sort of in a playoff spot right now, but really, I think the Blues are tracking them down. The Blues have games in hand. The Coyotes missed the playoffs. They have a GM wants to hire his own guy. Expiring contract. Tocchet doesn't really get fired that way. He just doesn't get re-signed, doesn't get brought back. And I think, he's a well-respected guy. The team can't really score. I think it's still in need of a lot of missing pieces there. So there could be an opening in Arizona. I don't really see Patrick Roy ending up there, but that's another option. Of course, you look to a guy like Rod Brind'Amour in Carolina, still needs a contract. I can't imagine Brind'Amour really going anywhere else, and I can't imagine Patrick Roy going to Carolina either. I don't see that as really being a fit for him. One of the issues with Brind'Amour is he's had a ton of success since taking over the head coaching job in Carolina, and on his current contract, he's one of the lowest paid coaches in the league, so it's certainly more than fair that he get a nice bump up in pay. And I would think, personally, if he doesn't get a deal worked out with the Canes to remain head coach, that Seattle and his old friend and former GM, Ron Francis, would be very interested after watching what he's done in Carolina the past couple of years. So I would think that he would suddenly become one of the top, if not the top candidate for the Kraken, should something not get worked out. But many feel that things are being worked on and they're getting closer, and that there's a good chance that Brind'Amour gets an extension to remain the head coach in Carolina. And then, of course, you've also got Travis Green in Vancouver. Many are wondering why he hasn't been extended. The Canucks have had good progress. Obviously, he's a good coach, well-respected guy. They've gone through a lot of adversity this year, and you can say what you want about where things are at. I know a lot of people are unhappy with Jim Benning, but obviously, in my opinion at least, Travis Green deserves to remain on and continue what he's doing with the Canucks organization as the head coach there. He's coached a lot of these kids, not only on the NHL level, but before that in the AHL too. He's been with them a long time, knows what this team's capable of, and I think he deserves an extension, but still question marks there. But again, another situation that I don't really see Patrick Roy going to. There's a few interim head coaches around the league right now. You've got Don Granato in Buffalo. Do we see Patrick Roy going to Buffalo? Not very likely. Patrick Roy is the kind of guy that wants a lot of power. He wants to be able to make a lot of decisions, and I think that's what ended things for him in Colorado, is that Sakic's the GM, he's the head coach. Of course, Joe Sakic and Patrick Roy, long-time relationship, playing together, etc. Obviously Patrick Roy wanted more influence on player personnel and decisions that way in management, and when he wasn't getting it, he up and quit. That's kind of my take on what happened there. So I think he's going to want a situation where he can either be coach and GM, or he'll just be the manager, hire his own coach, something to that effect. But he wants a lot of say, and he's going to be not the easiest to work with. So I think it's going to have to be the right situation. And that takes us lastly here to a situation I can't say anything that would be, anything close to being, the right thing. I don't know what'll happen, but there could be a situation open up in Montreal, and a lot of that is going to depend on how things go down the stretch here. I don't want to get any Habs fans excited for the arrival of Patrick Roy, or get you upset at me for thinking that Montreal is going to be needing somebody like him, because obviously they're in a playoff spot today. But as we all know, the Habs have been struggling lately. They have not performed as well as hoped after Dominic Ducharme's taken over as head coach. After they let Claude Julien go, they at least had a winning record under Julien. Theoretically, they were 9-5-4. Their record is not as good under Ducharme. They've lost a lot lately here down the stretch. Carey Price has been injured. Marc Bergevin has made some interesting moves. A lot of them I agree with, but obviously a couple down the stretch here, like the Eric Staal trade's not working out. There's pressure there. There's no doubt. With all the moves that Marc Bergevin made leading up to the deadline, and even since last offseason, since the bubble playoffs were done, many felt that Marc Bergevin was in a situation where he had to make the playoffs this year and make a little bit of noise to kind of keep his own job security and to keep everything rolling here. And it kind of showed with how he attacked the season. And right now, if the Habs were to have a situation where they lose enough down the stretch that the Flames catch them and they don't make the playoffs, I would think after all the money he spent, all the contracts that have given out, all the moves at the deadline or leading into the deadline, I would think that there would be some significant changes. I mean, Dominic Ducharme's not secured in his position because he's only interim. Bergevin has been there a long time, and it could be a situation where maybe they clean house. I mean, I know a lot of people would love to see Patrick Roy in Montreal. I think that it would be very interesting, but like I said before, he wants a lot of say and a lot of power. From somebody like me who's a non-partial fan, I think it'd be a very entertaining, interesting concept to think about. Not really sure if he'd be the greatest fit or not, but I just think that he's going to be very particular on what opportunities present themselves. And I think that at the end of the day, if that situation were to come up with Montreal, that they would certainly consider him. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not saying he's going to Montreal by any means. I think it's way too early for that. But things have not been trending well for Montreal. And if things do trend poorly, I can see a situation at least where they make changes. And if they make changes, he's available. I can see there at least, it's going to be brought up in the media for no doubt at the very least. And I can see them at least talking to him to see about where things go from there. It's an interesting thought. I have no idea if it'll happen, but I just wanted to make sure we talked about it here today. The fact is, he's looking to make a comeback. That much we can say for certain. Where he goes, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you see any situation that if things change in Montreal and they were looking for a new GM, would he be the guy to consider, or do you see him going to another team? And if so, where do you think is a good landing spot based on where there could be openings this coming offseason? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.